Just say these 6 words and you'll attract anyone. Stoicism, Daily Stoic. There are 6 words that, once spoken silently to yourself and truly believed, will change the way people respond to you forever. Not because they are magic. Not because they are a trick. But because they represent a total shift in your inner state, and people can feel that shift before you ever say a single sentence out loud. The 6 words are simple. I do not need you. Say them again, slower this time. I do not need you. Feel how different that sentence is from desperation, from chasing, from the quiet begging so many people carry into every relationship, every conversation, every room they walk into. This is not about coldness. It is not about arrogance. It is about detachment, the same detachment the ancient Stoics spent their entire lives cultivating. The moment you stop needing someone's approval, their attention, or their affection to feel complete, you become magnetic in a way that neediness could never achieve. People are drawn to what does not depend on them. They flee from what does. Today we are going to explore why this ancient principle works, how to embody it authentically, and how it will transform every relationship in your life, romantic or otherwise. Before we go further, if you want more wisdom like this delivered directly to help you build unshakable presence, subscribe to this channel now. We release content built on Stoic philosophy, self-mastery, and timeless psychology every single week. Every subscriber helps this message reach someone still trapped in the exhausting cycle of chasing what should be attracting instead. Let's build this together. A short story. The king who stopped asking. In a kingdom long forgotten by name, there lived a young king named Aurelius who had recently inherited his father's throne. He was intelligent, kind, and capable, yet something in him was restless. He desperately wanted the approval of his court. He wanted the nobles to admire him, the generals to respect him, and the people to love him without question. So he asked constantly, "Do you think I ruled wisely today? Was my decision in council a good one? Do the people speak well of me?" The court began to notice this restlessness, and slowly, subtly, their respect for him began to erode. A king who constantly sought approval seemed less like a king and more like a boy waiting for permission. The nobles began speaking over him in meetings. The generals began questioning his orders. The people, sensing his uncertainty, grew uneasy rather than comforted by his presence. One evening, an old advisor who had served his father took him aside. "Your father," the advisor said, "never once asked if he ruled well. He simply ruled, according to his own judgment, and let the outcome speak for itself. The moment you stop asking for approval, my king, is the moment they will start giving it freely." Aurelian took this to heart. He stopped asking. He stopped seeking validation in every glance and every whispered conversation in the halls. He simply governed according to his own principles, his own wisdom, his own quiet confidence. Within months, the court's whispers changed. The nobles who once spoke over him began seeking his opinion first. The generals who once questioned him began following without hesitation. The people, sensing a steadiness they had not felt before, began to love him not because he asked for it, but because he had finally stopped needing it. This is the paradox at the center of everything we are about to discuss. The less you chase, the more you attract. The less you need, the more you receive. This was true in Aurelian's kingdom, and it is true in your relationships, your career, and every room you will ever walk into for the rest of your life. Principle 1. Neediness repels, detachment attracts. Human beings, whether we admit it or not, are drawn toward stability and repelled by desperation. This is not shallow or cruel. It is simply how the nervous system works. When someone senses that you need them, whether for validation, affection, or approval, a part of their brain instinctively recognizes an imbalance of power, and imbalance creates discomfort. When someone senses that you are complete with or without them, a different part of the brain activates, one associated with intrigue, respect, and attraction. The Stoics called this apatheia, a state of being undisturbed by external outcomes. It does not mean you feel nothing. It means your peace does not hinge on whether someone texts you back, compliments you, or chooses you over someone else. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events themselves but from our attachment to how those events should unfold. Applied to relationships, this means your suffering comes not from someone's absence, but from your belief that you require their presence to be whole. When you say, silently and honestly, "I do not need you," you are not rejecting connection. You are removing the desperation that poisons connection before it even has a chance to grow. Desperation asks, "Please choose me." Detachment says, I am already choosing myself, and you are welcome to join me if you wish. The second position, though quieter, is infinitely more magnetic than the first, because it requires no convincing, no performance, and no exhausting pursuit of approval that was never guaranteed in the first place. Principle 2. Chasing signals scarcity, stillness signals abundance. Every action you take toward another person communicates a silent message about your own perceived value. When you chase, when you overtext, overexplain, or over-apologize just to keep someone's interest, you are unconsciously communicating scarcity. You are saying, without words, I am afraid this is my only chance, so I must grab it before it disappears. People feel this energy, even if they cannot name it, and it repels them almost instinctively. Stillness communicates the opposite. When you do not chase, when you allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it, you communicate abundance. You communicate that your life is already full, that your worth does not hinge on this one interaction, and that you are simply open to connection rather than desperate for it. Abundance is magnetic because it requires nothing from the other person. It simply exists, calm and complete, and invites others to step into its orbit rather than dragging them in by force. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the danger of attaching your peace to things outside your control, including the opinions and affections of other people. He reminded himself daily that external validation was fleeting and unreliable, and that true strength came from an internal sense of sufficiency. This is not a modern dating trick. It is ancient wisdom, proven across centuries, that the less you grasp for something, the more naturally it tends to come toward you. Grasping creates friction, stillness creates space, and people are always more willing to walk into space than to fight through friction. Principle 3. The silence after rejection is where your power lies. Nearly everyone reacts poorly to rejection. The natural impulse is to explain yourself, to ask why, to seek one more chance to prove your worth. But this impulse, though understandable, destroys the very magnetism you are trying to protect. The moment you beg for reconsideration, you confirm the other person's decision rather than challenging it, because now you appear even less secure than you did before the rejection occurred. The Stoic response to rejection is radically different. It is silence, dignity, and quiet acceptance. Not because the rejection does not hurt, but because reacting with desperation only compounds the pain without changing the outcome. Seneca reminded his students that many things in life are simply not within our control, and the opinions of others fall firmly into that category. What is within your control is how you carry yourself in the aftermath. When you respond to rejection with grace rather than desperation, something interesting often happens. The other person is left with an image of someone secure, composed, and unwilling to beg, and that image often lingers far longer than the rejection itself. This is not a manipulation tactic. It is simply the natural result of maintaining your dignity even when things do not go your way. People remember how you made them feel, and someone who remains calm, respectful, and self-assured after rejection leaves behind a far more powerful impression than someone who collapses into pleading. If this message is resonating with you, take a moment to subscribe to this channel right now. We are building a community of people who are done chasing and ready to start attracting through genuine self-mastery. Subscribing helps this message reach someone else who is exhausted from begging for attention that was never freely given. Let's continue building this together. Principle 4. Attraction follows self-respect, not performance. Many people believe attraction is built through performance, saying the right things, wearing the right clothes, presenting the most polished version of themselves at every moment. But performance is exhausting, and worse, it is unsustainable. Eventually the mask slips, and what lies beneath is revealed. True attraction, the kind that lasts, is not built on performance. It is built on self-respect. Self-respect means you do not abandon your own standards to please someone else. It means you do not shrink your opinions, silence your needs, or tolerate disrespect simply to keep someone interested. Diogenes the Cynic lived by his own rules entirely, indifferent to the judgment of Athenian society, and though many mocked him, even more respected him, because he never once betrayed his own principles to gain their approval. When you carry genuine self-respect into a relationship, romantic or otherwise, you communicate a boundary without ever having to state it explicitly. You communicate, I will treat you well, and I expect the same in return, but I will not lower myself below that standard for anyone. This kind of quiet self-respect is rare, and rarity is inherently attractive. Most people are so accustomed to others bending over backward for their approval that a person who simply will not do that becomes unforgettable. Not because they are playing hard to get, but because they genuinely, authentically, do not need to. Principle 5. Presence is more attractive than pursuit. There is a difference between pursuing someone and being present with someone, and most people confuse the two. Pursuit is anxious. It is future-focused, constantly wondering what the other person is thinking, planning the next move, calculating how to keep their interest alive. Presence is calm. It is rooted entirely in the current moment, genuinely engaged with the person in front of you without needing anything from them beyond the moment itself. The Stoics placed enormous value on living in the present moment, recognizing that anxiety about the future and regret about the past were the two greatest thieves of peace. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that the present moment was the only thing anyone truly possessed, and that obsessing over what might happen next only stole the value from what was happening now. When you are fully present with someone, rather than anxiously pursuing an outcome, they feel it immediately. Presence feels like being truly seen. Pursuit feels like being evaluated. People are drawn toward the former and repelled by the latter, even if they cannot articulate why. The next time you find yourself in a conversation, resist the urge to plan your next move or worry about the outcome. Simply be there, fully, without an agenda. This alone will make you more magnetic than any calculated strategy ever could. Principle 6. Boundaries are the foundation of attraction. A person without boundaries is a person without shape, and shapeless things are difficult to respect, let alone desire. Boundaries communicate that you value yourself enough to protect your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being. Without boundaries, you become endlessly available, endlessly accommodating, and paradoxically, endlessly less attractive, because there is nothing left to earn or respect. Epictetus taught that freedom comes from clearly understanding what is yours to control and refusing to let others trespass upon it. Applied to relationships, this means knowing your limits and holding them, even when holding them is uncomfortable, even when holding them risks the other person's disappointment. A boundary held with calm confidence, rather than anger or ultimatum, is one of the most attractive things a person can display, because it proves that your affection is not unconditional, and unconditional things are rarely valued. This does not mean building walls or becoming inaccessible. It means understanding the difference between generosity and self-abandonment. You can be kind, warm, and open while still maintaining clear limits around how you expect to be treated. In fact, the combination of warmth and boundaries is far more magnetic than either alone. Warmth without boundaries becomes exploitable. Boundaries without warmth becomes cold. Together, they create the exact balance that makes a person feel both safe and desirable at once. Principle 7. Confidence is not loud, it is quiet. There is a common misconception that confidence must be loud, boastful, or dominant to be effective. But true confidence, the kind rooted in Stoic philosophy, is almost always quiet. It does not need to announce itself because it is not seeking validation from the room. It simply exists, calm and unwavering, regardless of who notices. Marcus Aurelius, despite ruling the most powerful empire in the known world, wrote his private journals not for public praise, but for his own personal growth. He had no need to broadcast his confidence, because his confidence was never built for an audience in the first place. This is the model of true Stoic self-assurance, internal, private, and entirely independent of external recognition. When you carry this kind of quiet confidence into your relationships, you stop needing to prove yourself in every conversation. You stop needing to win every argument or impress every room. You simply exist as yourself, calmly and completely, and let that authenticity speak louder than any performance ever could. People are drawn toward this kind of stillness because it feels rare in a world so obsessed with noise. In a room full of people trying to be seen, the person who is simply, calmly themselves becomes the one everyone notices most. If you have made it this far into the video, you clearly value the kind of wisdom we build here every week. Please subscribe to this channel now so you never miss the next lesson in mastering yourself and attracting the life you actually want. Every subscription helps this message reach someone still trapped in the exhausting cycle of chasing. Let's keep building this together. Principle 8. Let go of the outcome, not the effort. There is an important distinction the Stoics made that applies directly to attraction. You are responsible for your effort, your character, and your actions, but you are never responsible for the outcome, because the outcome depends on variables outside your control, including another person's free will. This distinction is liberating once truly understood. This does not mean you stop trying. It means you stop attaching your peace to whether the other person responds the way you hope. You can be kind, generous, and genuinely engaged, while still releasing the outcome entirely. This is the essence of the 6 words. I do not need you, is not a statement of indifference toward the effort. It is a statement of indifference toward the outcome. When you release the outcome, something remarkable happens to your effort. It becomes purer, less anxious, and less transactional. You are no longer being kind in order to receive kindness back. You are simply being kind because that is who you are, regardless of what it earns you. This purity is deeply attractive, because most people can sense, almost instinctively, when kindness comes with strings attached versus when it is offered freely. Freely given warmth, detached from any expectation of return, is one of the rarest and most magnetic qualities a person can possess. Principle 9. Your value does not fluctuate with their attention. One of the most damaging patterns in modern relationships is allowing your sense of self-worth to rise and fall based on someone else's attention. When they text back quickly, you feel valuable. When they go quiet, you feel worthless. This constant fluctuation is exhausting, and worse, it is entirely built on a foundation that was never yours to control in the first place. The Stoics taught that true worth comes from your own virtue, your own character, and your own actions, none of which depend on another person's behavior. Your value does not increase because someone likes you, and it does not decrease because someone does not. It remains constant, stable, and entirely yours, regardless of external circumstances. When you internalize this truth, attention from others becomes something you enjoy rather than something you require. You welcome it when it comes, but you do not collapse when it fades. This stability is precisely what makes someone magnetic, because people can sense when your worth is not on loan from their approval. They can sense when you are already whole, and wholeness, more than any physical trait or clever line, is what draws people in and keeps them there. Principle 10. Say the words, then live them. The 6 words alone are not enough if they remain only a phrase you repeat without embodying their meaning. I do not need you must become a lived reality, reflected in how you carry yourself, how you respond to rejection, how you set boundaries, and how you release outcomes you cannot control. Words without embodiment are simply performance, and performance, as we discussed earlier, is exhausting and ultimately unconvincing. Begin practicing this truth in small moments. The next time you feel the urge to double text someone who has not responded, pause and remind yourself of those 6 words. The next time you feel tempted to abandon your own plans just to accommodate someone else's inconsistent interest, pause and remind yourself again. Over time, this phrase stops being something you say and becomes something you simply are. This transformation does not happen overnight, but it happens steadily, the same way all Stoic discipline is built, through daily, deliberate practice. Each time you choose self-respect over desperation, presence over pursuit, and boundaries over people-pleasing, you reinforce the identity of someone who is genuinely, authentically complete without needing anyone else to complete them. And it is precisely this completeness, more than any 6 words could ever achieve on their own, that becomes irresistibly attractive to everyone around you. The final truth. Attraction was never about chasing harder, performing better, or saying the perfect thing at the perfect moment. It was always about becoming someone so secure, so whole, and so at peace with themselves that neediness simply had no room left to exist. The 6 words, I do not need you, are not a rejection of connection. They are the doorway to the only kind of connection worth having, one built on freedom rather than fear, presence rather than pursuit, and self-respect rather than desperation. The king in our story did not become beloved because he tried harder to be loved. He became beloved the moment he stopped needing love to validate his rule. This is the paradox at the heart of every meaningful relationship you will ever build. The less you chase, the more you are chased. The less you need, the more you are wanted. Not because of a trick, but because detachment reveals a wholeness that neediness could never fake. If this video gave you even a small shift in how you see attraction and self-worth, please subscribe to this channel now. We build content rooted in Stoic philosophy, self-mastery, and timeless wisdom every single week, designed to help you become the kind of person who no longer chases what should be naturally drawn to them. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and comment below the moment you finally stopped chasing and started attracting. Thank you for spending this time with us. Keep becoming.